podcast, part of the Field of 68 network. We're excited today to be joined by the wizard, the man behind the scenes at Baylor that I don't think any of the success the Bears would be having would be possible right now if it wasn't for Charlie Melton, the head strength and conditioning coach at Baylor, works with the basketball team, and has been a huge part of their success for years and years now. And Charlie, first of all, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a little background on how long you've been at Baylor, kind of your history before you got there, and just kind of fill people in on that stuff?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Known you guys for years. Ashley and I hiked up a mountain in Italy with Coach Drew. I know I've been working out with Jason, helping his bench press technique for a minute.
Man.
You got to get the bar to your chest, man. That's the thing.
I know, I'm getting it there. I just don't do it with the heavy stuff. Anything over like 225, man, I got to go 3/4. But I need your help, man. I'm losing strength. I need to get back in the weight room with you. So.
So this is my sweet 16th season at Baylor. Got here way back in 2005, 2 years after Coach Drew and Coach Tang. And I was at Florida State prior to that. And I started as a GA with football and got an entry-level full-time strength position, and got a call from my major professor, my mentor from University of Memphis Grad School, Richard Kreider. And he had come to Baylor and was helping Coach Drew. And Coach Drew was looking to get his own guy just for basketball. And Dr. Kreider said, hey, I got this guy. And so Coach came through Tallahassee and interviewed me in my office. And I didn't think I had a shot at basketball because I've never worked basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I was football, track and field, women's soccer, kind of, the early stuff for most strength coaches. And the light's changing, so now I can actually sit back.
There we go.
But, yeah, so I've seen the good, bad, and the ugly over these last 15 years or so. And it's been exciting to work with a group of guys like this. Coach Drew is what you think he is. I mean, a lot of people think there's no way he could be that happy.
Mm-hmm.
No way he could be that excited, but let me tell you, he has been for 16 straight years.
Yeah. That's the thing I like about him the most, and I think that's the thing a lot of people like the most. Let me ask you before we get into just the team and the program. I've always been curious with strength coaches. What motivated you to become a strength coach? Where did that passion begin? And also, were you ever a big time? Just from talking to you, I think I know the answer. It's a big time lifter yourself, as far as even at the competitive level, or what's your history there?
Going way back, I'm the oldest of four boys.
Yeah.
My dad, Ron Melton, rest in peace, was in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was just an old school tough guy, worked on the railroad. He was a welder. We were in a real lower middle class, blue collar family. So we grew up riding bikes, jumping off the roof of the house. No real formal sports at that age. We just didn't have the money to really get into it. But we played every sport in the neighborhood. So finally got in college, didn't know what I wanted to do for a career, but I really liked to work out, and I worked at UPS at night loading trucks.
Yeah.
And the girl at the time that I was dating, her mom worked in health insurance and said, hey, there's this guy that does work hardening at a company called Health South. It was kind of a mesh between physical therapy and return to work. And I was like, well, I could get into that maybe. And when I took my first class at University of Memphis, the subject was femur length and how it affects squat strength and deadlift strength. And I was like, you can get grades for this stuff?
Yeah.
So instantly hooked. Started really going after Olympic style weightlifting, had a great coach, Dr. Andy Fry, who's now the director of exercise and sports science at University of Kansas. And he kind of led this group of, ragamuffin lifters like myself. And I ended up qualifying for collegiate nationals my senior year of college.
Wow.
And I got third place my first national event. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. Overall, like all around, or how it's done?
Yeah, my weight class, third place. The only problem was there were only 3 people in the weight class. So I walked back in the warm-up room, and the first place guy was warming up with my max. So I knew that I had a long ways to go. But I fell in love with it. I'm really a big nerd, a big science guy. I like systems and methods, and it's just a blessing that I can do what I love and what God has given me a passion for and an ability for. And now I'm here on this long ride at Baylor. It's been tremendous.
Yeah. Good.
How much of your job today is staying current on, trends with strength and conditioning training, and just constantly researching new ways, better ways to do things? I mean, is that a big part of what you do every day?
It is to some degree. Being one of the older guys now, I'm not as up to speed on current literature, but what we are seeing is a return to the basics a lot.
Right.
The fundamentals never get old. Coach Brooks with Baylor now has the saying, same old boring habits. And I've learned a lot along the way. My wife, Julie, is a pediatric physical therapist, and she is involved with teaching people how to crawl properly and learn how to stand properly. And those things really apply to our field.
Right.
And so I've learned in the past few years things that I had overlooked in the past. But really understanding the scientific basis for this stuff. So a lot of what we do is based on the force velocity curve, which sounds really fancy, but it's really simple if you explain it. There's only a certain amount of body parts you can train. The biggest edge that I can have is being at every practice, every film session, every game. Just I'm embedded with the team. So, excuse me, unlike a coach that may just wait in the weight room for the team to show up,
Right.
I'm traveling back and forth from, scenario to scenario. So it's more of a read and react. Basketball is kind of funny where our off season is really only about 9 or 10 weeks in the summer, barring last summer, obviously.
Right.
But a lot of what we do in terms of trying to stress the guys and push the guys falls within the parameters of how hard was practice, what game is coming next, what does each individual have in terms of development and limitation. But definitely, there's a bunch of guys I talked to on the phone. Andy Kettler at Louisville is one of my close friends. Andrea Hootie at Texas has been just great with me. And just that relationship and being able to, we call it, talking shop.
Yeah.
That's the more current literature. We kind of all have a handle on how do you train, how do you teach movements, but it's those scenarios and it's situational awareness that really gives you an edge as a strength coach.
This is such a difficult year with COVID, and Jason and I were curious, and I'm sure a lot of people listening would be curious, not getting into specific names, but when someone has been quarantined for 14 days, 10 days, like what can you do? Like, what are some of the challenges as a strength and conditioning coach with this year, particularly to try to get these guys up to speed, back into game playing shape? I mean, what are you able to do?
Yeah, that's the big question right now. Hit the nail on the head. And, typically one of the old sayings we have is you use the summer and the early, preseason non-conference to kind of get the hay in the barn.
Right.
And then once you go through that December, maybe you've got some preseason tournament stuff, rolling into conference, that's when you start to kind of really back off and let basketball take over. But the challenge now is we didn't get enough hay in the barn.
Right.
And so it's trying to find out, when a guy comes back, we've got a 4-day protocol that we have to go through with our medical staff. And Dave Snyder, our athletic trainer, is just a genius. And we wouldn't be where we are now without Dave Snyder at this point. So I lean on a lot of other people for wisdom. I ask a lot of questions. One of the biggest blessings I've had, and it doesn't sound like it's a blessing, I've blown out both shoulders and both knees and, lost function completely for 6 weeks at a time, immobilized, and having to learn to get my own self back up to speed is really paying dividends now with trying to ease guys along. It's really trying, the Bible talks about the eye of the needle, and it's harder for a rich man to get through the eye of the needle than a camel, right? And that's kind of what we're facing now, is finding that sweet spot of not doing too little, because we still have to push because the hay's not in the barn, but not pushing too hard to give a guy, a situation where maybe he's not ready to get to a game. It's difficult. It really is. It's hard.
Yeah. One of the things that you're dealing with, is it breathing? Is it strength? I'm talking about when they come back from being off for a while. Like, where are the areas you're really kind of having to address to kind of get them back to normal? Or I'm sure it probably varies, because I guess COVID's kind of hitting everyone different,
Everybody's got different symptoms. Some people are positive with no symptoms at all, just asymptomatic situation. And then you've got other people that are with fever. And one of the first things you see is just endurance and stamina overall.
Yeah.
Weeks off. You don't lose a lot of your maximal strength, but you lose a lot of your aerobic power. You lose a lot of your repeat sprint ability. So we might slide 15, 20%, but it's kind of the idea that, hey, we haven't gone back to ground zero. We still have, we're blessed with a bunch of really good athletes this year. Great bodies, older guys that know how to take care of their bodies.
Yeah.
And so it's really, I was working with John Chachua today, and he's one of these guys that outworks everybody in the world, and just trying to help John gradually get back up to speed.
Yeah.
It's the same with all of our guys. Everybody's hungry. So even if it's not COVID, maybe you lose a guy with a wrist or an ankle or a knee, and it's the same process.
Right.
It's something we're used to dealing with, but I think it's not to get political or anything, but it's a little overhyped.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been really encouraged with the performances we've had over the past few days. Our guys have held up really well over the quarantine, and I think we're in a much better spot than we anticipated.
I should know this, but I don't. Like when you're quarantining, let's say you're a guy that tested positive, but you had no symptoms, or maybe you're a guy that didn't test. That didn't test positive, but you have to quarantine because of the contact tracing and all that. Are you like under rules? Are you allowed to do anything? Like, can you work on? I don't mean you. Like, can they come up to the Thrill Center and work out? Can they work out at their apartment and go out and shoot on the blacktop? Like, are they just out?
So the guys that have symptoms are in self-isolation, and they can't do anything.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they might be sneaking in push-ups and squat jumps in the room. We've got some hard-headed guys that don't know how to stop.
Yeah.
But when we've got some guys that have been contact traced, you have to get clearance to work them out on opposite baselines in the practice gym. So there were some times where I'd be on Coach Drew's balcony with the guys way socially distanced, with all the equipment set up. So they came in the front door, went to their station, went out the front door. And it's a little different for each situation, but with the guys that have been symptomatic, there's a 4-day return to play protocol where they measure, oxygen saturation, heart rate recovery between sets, and it's a gradual increase. It's there's some heart issues that have popped up across the board, and we want to be really sensitive to that. And it really comes down to a guy's comfort level. We're used to pushing people to the limit, but if in this situation, if a guy says, "Hey, man, I'm hurting right now," it's just better to back off and live to fight another day, kind of.
Yeah.
No doubt. So, Charlie, I know the fans love, and I'm always bugging you about strength numbers, freak testing numbers. Is there anything you can share on this team? We know Jonathan's kind of a freak of nature, 40 plus vertical. hard worker, strong guy. I mean, what have you seen from the current team that sticks out from a strength and vertical and just speed, I guess, speed numbers?
I mean, you watch Davion Mitchell, and he moves faster laterally than he does front to back sometimes. He's just a freak of nature. And that corresponds to a 41-inch vertical jump,
right?
Which is amazing. That's an elite jump. And you've got a guy like JB who doesn't have really impressive testing numbers, similar to KD. KD couldn't bench 185 going to the NBA Combine, but we're all wearing his shoes now. And I really work on trying to get people to understand those numbers are impressive, but putting the ball in the hoop is way more impressive. Staying in front of a guy with the ball, moving your feet. So, I mean, some of the numbers that we used to classically use, NBA Combine stuff like three-quarter court sprints, lane agility, standing vert, max vert. We don't really have a handle on those this year as much as past years because we had such a limited situation coming back in the summer after that long quarantine that we didn't test. We were just really trying to get back to full function.
Right.
But I can tell you that LJ Cryer is way faster and way stronger than people realize. He came in ready. I mean, he seems like a college junior as a true freshman in terms of physical ability. It makes you look good as a strength coach when they recruit guys like that. I mean, these guys bring in athletes that make me look like I really know what I'm doing.
Right.
Well,
Adam Flagler is really impressive in the weight room. He comes in on off days and gets extra work. Even Big Zach Loveday has been putting in extra time in the weight room. He's got to get his strength up. Macy O.T. can run for days. He may not be the strongest guy in the room, but in the last 5 minutes, he's going to be at 95%. And, the guy in front of him is going to be at 75%.
Right.
Yeah.
So some of those qualities you see out on the floor don't necessarily come from myself, but from their mom and dad. They come from all the hours they put in with our GAs, the shots they put up at night on the gun. But we've had, in spite of missing all that time after March last year, I mean, golly, we're about a year ago that all hit the fan. We came back and we're doing numbers that we would normally be doing in the face of all those things.
Right. Right.
Well, yeah.
Speaking of that, transformation wise, I mean, I know Quincy AC was an incredible transformation story. Corey Jefferson, who I think came to Baylor at like 175 or something crazy like that.
Crazy.
What are some of your biggest success stories from a transforming their body standpoint as you look back on your Baylor career?
I mean, those are two of the big front runners. Obviously, Jonathan Motley was a Corey Jefferson type story. I was just blown away when Mott came back after being gone for a while, and he's about 245, and I've been begging him to get over 215 for forever. It's when those guys, you see those lessons take hold when they have to do it on their own.
Right.
Torian Prince was a great transformation.
Yeah.
But I think really going back, one of the best transformations in early times was Mamadou Gien.
Yeah, I was going to ask about him. That's what because were you there when he first showed up on campus?
He came in that spring, and I showed up that summer.
Okay, and he waited. And for those that may not be familiar with Mamadou, because this is early Scott Drew era, but 7-footer, right? From and where was he from in Africa? Senegal. Yeah, and 7-footer. What did he weigh? About 170 pounds when he showed up at Baylor. 180. So he was below 200, wasn't he?
Yeah, close to 205-ish.
Oh, like okay, my bad. But either way, pretty darn skinny for a 7-footer.
7-footer at 205. I mean,
yeah.
It's we've got a before and after picture of him, and what's really the transformation that excites me is his body looks tremendous. His chest is huge. We got him the after picture. He weighs about 260.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a massive amount of weight gain over about an 18-month period. But really the look in his eye from the first picture to the second picture and the set of his jaw and just the confidence was the big transformation.
Yeah.
That's what I really love about what I do. It's the numbers are great, but just when guys change their mentality and they learn that they've got the ability, your body kind of opens the gateway for that aggression to flow and for that confidence to flow a little bit more. And that's better than any bench press number I could give you. Just seeing those guys come to life.
Right. They can start to see. I remember I was in when Villanova won the title a few years ago. I was in their locker room and we were interviewing their strength coach for some reason. I was working at Bleacher Report. He said, it's amazing how once those guys, those freshmen start seeing their abs come in a little bit, all of a sudden they get building up. They see that now they want to diet and they want to work harder. I mean, you see the little baby stuff. Everyone, we mentioned Jonathan Chamachachawa earlier. And like you said, he's probably a guy you don't have to push too much because he's pushing himself. But just put into perspective, whether it's through a story or an illustration, on just how hard he works. I mean, what's a good example of him going after it?
Several stories, but one of the most recent ones is there was a preseason kind of prediction on him getting, and this may be misquoted, but this is what he told me, that they expected him to get about 1.5 rebounds a game. And he came in and went through two of the hardest conditioning metabolic circuits we have back-to-back, nonstop. There's this one we do with a 305-pound tire and a 20-pound sledgehammer.
Yeah.
And I've gone through it back when I was in shape, kind of. And it took me about 10 minutes, and I was really proud of that. So I told him, hey, this is hard. I know you've done it before, but 10 minutes is my best time. He went continuous nonstop and got it done in like 7 minutes.
Ooh.
Wow.
And then went on through another workout that we call chemotherapy. That's in honor of a lot of my family members and the rest of, everybody's families that have suffered through cancer and chemo treatments. And it's one of those workouts that Freddie Gillespie laughed about when he first got there. Like, what's this chemo stuff? And at the start of the third set, he was hanging over the trash can.
Right.
John knocked those out back to back and then went and did an individual with the GA for 45 minutes. I mean, he's built different. He's got a different motor.
Yeah.
He is he's a pleasure to work with.
I think people sometimes don't realize that, probably working with football players and basketball players is completely different for a strength coach. And as someone that likes to lift weights, you're always like, how much can this guy bench or how much can this guy squat? But you're not really aiming for maxes. And you probably don't want basketball players bench pressing 300 pounds. How is it different?
You can be strong enough to hoop. I mean, it's a lifetime activity. And obviously these guys need to have the durability and the physical prowess to withstand the demands of a long season. And I think durability for basketball players is more important than, 10
sheer
games
strength.
a week. Yeah, sheer strength stuff, because football's got all spring, all summer where they're not playing games. And it's all about squatting more, cleaning more, benching more. I mean, I've been part of that whole system.
Yeah.
And Obim Okeke, one of our graduate assistants, former walk-on, gave me a great compliment a couple weeks ago and said, he's played football and basketball, and he said, I don't think people realize how hard it is to program strength conditioning for basketball because the schedule changes every week. You might train Monday, Wednesday, Friday one week, and then, the next week might be Tuesday, Thursday. And it's just always trying to manage what needs to be done in light of the week situation. Even in the summer, we have guys, vets come back to play pickup, and we've got a, basketball camp. And all of a sudden your Friday morning workout is compromised because they were up till 1 o'clock in the morning going, 5-on-5 pickup against vets, and they're demolished at 7 in the morning. It's a constant adjustment. It's hard to plan ahead. When I first got to Baylor, I had a 16-week model with a 5% variation between major lifts and repetition changes in between each week. And within about the second week, I just balled it all up and threw it in the trash and started writing it on a whiteboard. I mean, you can't plan, but if you have a handle on the basics and a handle on the science, you can make the right reads and adjustments. So it's more of that than it is planning ahead.
Ashley, I want to butt in with one more question. When it comes to diet and what these guys are eating, I mean, they can eat, right? I mean, like they're lean and they're in there sweating every day. They can go eat a large pizza at night. I think, well, it's a little different working with basketball players that maybe now don't have these weight issues where you're trying. And I can remember times when like a coach may want a guy to drop 20 pounds or whatever, and they're really going to monitor that. But is diet and monitoring that kind of stuff a big thing with you, or no?
Well, we want to eat clean because we don't want high blood pressure. We don't want to be pre-diabetic. We want to work on cholesterol levels.
Mm-hmm.
But they're in that sweet spot of it's hard for them to get enough calories.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes you tell the guy, man, go get a pizza. You haven't had any food all day. They show up at noon and they've been in class all morning. They skip breakfast. They didn't have time to eat lunch, and then they've got to go through 3 hours of basketball work. And I don't care what they eat at that point. They just need fuel in the tank.
Or 10, fish sticks from Long John Silver's, like Matthew likes to
Meyer,
eat.
yes, he's a Long John Silver's dude now.
It's pretty good. Sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I'm curious on sleep. Like I'm 51, and I'm starting to realize how important sleeping 7 hours a day is. But I'm sure younger guys probably don't get that 7 hours plus of sleep every night. I mean, is that something you emphasize, or is it mainly just before games? What's your philosophy on getting the proper amount of sleep?
You can buy all the protein and creatine and pre-workout in the world, but 3 or 4 days of solid sleep, that's the best supplement you can get. I mean, science backs it up. Growth hormone, one of the major hormones that changes the systems in your body and allows you to recover, is only released during sleep and during deep REM sleep. And so if you're sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, by the time you start to hit growth hormone release and you wake up, I mean, you see growth hormone is compromised in drug addicts or people with chronic disease, and you've seen a crackhead.
Right.
I mean, there's skin and bones, no muscle tissue. And so sleep plays just such a major role in when we don't get enough sleep because of, let's say, a late game and early class the next morning, the go-to is getting a nap.
Yep.
And really sleep, we all take a hit on sleep during basketball season because we're changing time zones, we're changing playing times, sleeping situations, and it's a constant challenge during the season to prioritize sleep. But it is way more important than people give it credit for. I've been part of 5 a.m., 6 a.m. football workouts. One of the things in basketball, we really don't do a lot of early morning workouts.
Right.
We'd rather guys get sleep because you know how it goes. Even if you've got a 6 a.m. workout, they're staying up till 1 or 2 with their girl or on 2K or, just being college kids, and you don't want to take the experience away from them, but we also have a job to do. So I think scheduling sometimes on our end helps prioritize sleep.
I know Jason needs to go here, but I got one more quick question. Like, have you broken out the kilt at all this season?
I have retired the kilt. My last games was in 2015 in San Antonio. I hope to one day get down in the Masters division, but I did that for 10 years and just loved it to death, and it blew my body into small fragments. I
have no idea what y'all are talking about.
Highland games. I threw competitively in the Scottish Highland Games for about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So the guys that flip the cabers and throw the 56-pound weight over the bar for height and all that stuff. I break it out on Halloween every now and then.
Well, I'm just picturing throwing a 56-pound bar. That would hurt the whole shoulder, man. Like, did you say?
I'll text you a couple pictures of me in a kilt with a pitchfork. You'll laugh.
Okay. Hey, last thing before we let you go, not from an X's and O or a coaching perspective, but just give us what the mood of this team is like right now. I mean, heading in the, getting back on the court finally, everyone's excited to see them play again. I mean, where are their spirits at right now? Where are they mentally at the end of this 3-week pause?
We're back to 1-0. We went 1-0 today in the stretch. We went 1-0 during practice. We went 1-0 on post practice stretch. Film session was. I mean, we take it in small chunks. The most important thing is the next thing, and I think we all realize that. Obviously, it's going to be a big challenge this next 2 weeks. We don't know what the schedule is going to be. I think the Big 12 is tomorrow. But I think I know for me personally, I want to do this for Coach Drew. He's done this for so long, and it's right there in front of him, and it got snatched away last year, and it's getting threatened again this year. And he's done so much for me personally, and for everybody on the staff. That we want to win it because it's an accolade personally, obviously, but to get him that win and hang that banner would just really mean a lot to everybody for Coach.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're talking about the Big 12 banner and the NCAA banner, whatever banners you can grab, but any banner would be great. Yeah, absolutely.
Banners, we'll take them.
Right. Well, Charlie, thanks so much, man, for joining us. And Ashley and I have gotten to know you over the years, and anytime that you're having success, we're happy because we know what a great guy you are, and Baylor is lucky to have you. So we're looking forward to seeing you here over the next couple months or next month, and hopefully a lot of good times ahead. So for Ashley Hodge, I'm Jason King, Sic'Em 365, Field of 68. Subscribe on iTunes. Thanks.